and really sort of tease out many of the issues that from all this paper, including some of the issues that currently going on in all in Canada. So I'm sure that there's a lot of questions and comments from the audience, and so we have about 45 minutes for Q&A. So maybe I should start taking questions. So I see, I think I get 3 hands here. Okay, go ahead first.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Inch. I'm from the University of Maryland. So first, thank you. This was all really interesting. And thank you, Professor Manny, because you brought a lot of the points that I wanted to learn about. Well, the thing I'd like to add, especially to the issue of memory, is that it's interesting that everybody noted that it's really hard to find documentary evidence that's not generated by the state. That's something that's from the voices of the victims of the famine. And so I guess no one's going to have a final answer for this, but I just wanted to know your work, what you've been doing to try to make up for that. If you have any suggestions about types of documentary evidence that we could be looking for in our own archival work, that gives us a better sense of the people who are actually victims and that isn't just straight from the state.
We can take 3.
Yeah, the second one, go ahead.
Olga Bartelsson, University of Toronto. I have 2 brief questions for Professor Cameron. First question is about resistance. To my knowledge, in the newspaper Sovetskaya Step, which later became Kazakhstanskaya Pravda, there is a great deal of Goloshokin's report about first resistance of the Kazakhs to collectivization. How well is this topic researched? Maybe you will say a couple of words about this. So the second question is about memory, popular memory, and the politics of memory that you briefly discussed in your presentation. What about the Kazakh intelligentsia? Because Aljas Suleimanov, who is one of the most prominent Kazakh writers, he actually accused the Kazakh writers, intelligentsia, of the absence of memory because they don't write about the Kazakh famine. So can you briefly discuss what might be the reasons for this absence or for relative, for the relative silence in Kazakhstan about the Kazakh famine? Thank you.
Геннадій Побережний, Harvard Ukrainian Research Institute. Question I have for the Kazakh experts on the panel. I wonder the fact that Kazakhstan at the time was part of the Russian Federation, whether that, and if so, how it mattered vis-a-vis, let's say, compared to Ukraine, which, well, at least in terms of administrative structure, was a more autonomous entity. Obviously, didn't work necessarily in constitutional way as it should be, but Kazakhstan had even less. So, and if I'm not mistaken, at the time, Karakalpak autonomous oblast was part of Kazakhstan, and I wonder if there was any difference in policies that were applied to Karakalpaks versus Kazakhs. Do you have any information on the subject? And also I was quite impressed by the PowerPoint by Ralph Thaxton on the issue of the extent that the state went to ensure that the peasants do not have even capacity to store grain for any length of time. Because to me, it actually suggests the reintroduction of serfdom, since the peasants are becoming completely dependent on the provision that the state, can do, and they have no independent and autonomous capacity to resist in any way because they know that at least they have something to live on. And I think that is the point that I appreciate if you can elaborate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your questions. So first, I'll take Lindsay's question with regards to non-state sources, documentary evidence. I'll speak in my particular case, the case of the Kazakh Famine. It's a really important question. I think to get at the human story, we have to look outside the state. But it's very difficult, especially when you're working with a mobile population that was largely not literate during the famine. And it's something that I've thought about as I try to write my book, how to bring the human story to the forefront, because it's a very gripping human story, what happened. And I think there's a couple different ways that you might be able to do it in the case of the Kazakh Famine. One is there's been tremendous research by anthropologists about what nomadism is, how it functions, and huge debates about the importance of different various factors. And I found some of that research by anthropologists to be very helpful at thinking about what nomadism was, how it functioned, because one of the challenges is, a lot of the sources from the 20s and 30s, the state sources, they're also kind of overridden with evolutionary theory in writing about nomads. So I found that anthropological literature to be very helpful in trying to conceptualize what nomadic life was like and how people endured this. Something that we haven't talked too much about, which could be another type of source, are photographs and images. So we don't have too many photographs from the Kazakh Famine. I was really interested to see some of the photographs that Nicolo showed us. As far as I can understand, one of the very interesting things about it is that many of the photographs of the Kazakh Famine that at least I have in my possession that I know of were actually taken by one person. It's very interesting. Why did he think to document this when there was not actually supposed to be a famine going on? There are a few paintings and other things from the period, but it's difficult. It's a very difficult question. I'm interested to hear how others have dealt with it. So thank you for your questions. Actually, on the subject of resistance, Nicolo has written far more than me, so I will defer to this question. There are a number of really excellent Kazakh scholars working on that. So the second question as to popular memory, I think, well, first I should say that I'm, at the heart of it, still trying to write a book about what actually happened in the famine, and I think we need separate books on the subject of memory. It's a very complicated topic. In terms of the official silence, there are probably a couple of reasons for it. One, of course, is Kazakhstan's relationship with Russia, the big economic ties that it has with Russia, the significant Russian population that is still in Kazakhstan today. But actually, I think there are probably a couple of other reasons for it as well. Whenever I was researching my dissertation, I would often pose this question to Kazakh historians: why is no one writing about the Kazakh Famine anymore? People would, tell me that, look, in the Soviet period, when the Soviets arrived, we were nomads. Now we're a modern society. So I think there is this type of, in Kazakhstan, there is still some, I don't know how to put it, but perhaps kind of, people have not come to terms fully with the Soviet past. There's still some reworking of what the Soviet past meant in Kazakhstan, how to categorize that experience. And so maybe that's one other factor that I can add. In the break, I had a very interesting conversation with a Kazakh scholar in the audience, and she was also telling me, which does sound very, I think, interesting and plausible to me, is that, in Kazakhstan, there are also different cultures of memory, perhaps cultures of memory that don't conform to kind of Western understandings of, memory, like putting up a monument, these sorts of things. And so that's something, these kind of family stories and so on, that's something that we need more investigation of, we need more studies. So to the third question, and I'm sure Nicolo will have something to say about this as well. It's a very difficult question as to how the structures, these institutional structures, so Kazakhstan at this point was technically part of the Russian Federation. It doesn't become a full-fledged republic until 1936. And also Karakalpakstan was briefly part, it was administered within Kazakhstan. It's a very difficult question to answer. I'm not sure that I have a good answer. It's interesting, though, to note at this period that the rest of Central Asia, what we typically think of as Central Asia, so the 4 other states, they are actually administered under a different bureau, so the Central Asian Bureau. So Kazakhstan it actually was not considered part of Central Asia during the Soviet period, and the structures basically kind of flowed up through the Russian Federation. But I'll leave it to Nicola and hope that he can give a better answer than I can.